me, yes, the one and only Paul Friends, welcoming you to Starfleet Universe on call. And tonight we got Doug. Say hi, Doug.
Hi, Doug. Woohoo!
And we got Matt, if I recall correctly. I think that's Iggy. Iggy. Probably just hanging out. That's fine.
Wait, this is mic off. I think he's just listening.
Yeah, probably. No, that's fine because he said he was muted. That's fine. Well, what we're going to do this evening is we're going to actually continue on what we've been doing for the past few podcasts, and this time we're going to continue on to the weapons. I looked at how many weapons that the systems that the Omegas have, and there are quite a few. I'm not going to. I just realized I probably shouldn't go through all of these, but I'm going to try to hit on some of the more interesting ones. And so hopefully what I'm doing is next week I plan on hit on some of the Omega's systems like fire shields, adrenaline batteries, things like that. Things that are a little bit interesting when it comes to Omega. Obviously, weapon systems are everybody likes weapon systems, you know. How good can I blow people up, that kind of thing.
It's hard to blow somebody up if you can't push the button and set off the weapons.
That's true. That's true. You don't. You need to press the big red button. Sorry, I was just thinking about Monster vs. Aliens, where they actually have two big red buttons. One button to order a latte, the other one's to actually end the world. You know, launch all the ICBMs. You know, in nuclear holocaust, that kind of thing.
I usually think of the history eraser button from that classic Ren and Stimpy cartoon. Space Madness.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember. I don't remember much about Ren and Stimpy. I did watch it. I just don't remember many of the episodes at this point.
Well, you know, it was pre-internet as a big thing day. You know, before everybody got their connection to the internet going in the early 90s. So, yeah.
Okay, the early 90s, that means it would be after I was,
Even
out of college by that point. Yeah, I was just starting to work. I had having a full-time position. That
yeah,
wasn't.
maybe late 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Classic Ren and Stimpy was old. Oh, I see.
Did you look
He's
it up?
watching on Twitch.
Yeah.
He's not. His mic's muted here, but he's on the stream chat on Twitch.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So. Oh no, I didn't look it up. It's just ancient.
Yeah.
Like when I first met Mike back in the strain, way back in the early '90s, when I was on my second Army tour, it was like, yeah, it was old then.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I just looked it up real quick, and Ren and Stimpy went from 91 to 95.
Mm-hmm. That's the original, and yeah.
Yeah, that was.
And I think there was a revival too. It was either a revival or the creator just got did a different version of the show after after it was canceled on Nick.
Yeah, after
I think it was
canceled, then it got moved over to MTV.
Yeah, and then he lost his mind, and you can tell. Oh yeah. So, but no, the two things that come to mind with Ren and Stimpy are the aside from like the gross out toilet humor aspects of times, there was also the Happy Happy Joy Joy song, and the entirety of the episode of Space Madness. That's just like the classic defining. If you have somebody and you only ever get to have them watch one episode of Ren and Stimpy,
Mm-hmm.
that is the one episode to show them is Space Madness.
Ah,
So, where they're the space cadets, and it has the history eraser button in it. It's awesome. So, nothing really to report on gamers news today. Hopefully, I'll get around to updating the website. Um, and just to see how it goes, the service that I've been using for the last forever, like decade
yeah.
plus, it was bought out.
Oh,
So it went from whatever AM hosting has now been bought out by JetBlue or something like that.
oh,
And I
you
have
mean
like
Blue Host, or what's it?
it's tell you in a second.
JetBlue is an airline.
Yeah, I know JetBlue's. All right, hold on. It says Jet Host. That's it. Not JetBlue. Sorry.
Okay.
It says unless I'm being epically trolled here. It says Jet Host.
Mm-hmm.
Has all my information correct, and then so forth and so on. So I've had more than one email about this, and
Right.
yeah,
So it's not like you weren't
it looks.
notified. You were notified.
Oh yeah, and I'm like not thrilled with the idea, but there it is. Life moves on.
Yeah, well, but that's what happens. Consolidation for these different companies. You know that happens. I've had exactly the same thing happen with the servers for SMP Online, where I forget who it was that I had. Um, I think Rack something. It's been a while. They got acquired by IBM, which was enough. And I still remember. One of the funniest things to me was that I could get a hardware host, as in a host on bare metal, for cheaper than I could get for a virtual host. And I'm going, what? To me, that makes no sense whatever. I would think
I'm
if you get hardware, which is basic physical hardware, it should be more expensive because in theory you should be able to run multiple virtual hosts on one host. For all I know, it might have just been these were very old servers, and the virtual machines, the virtual hosts were more expensive. Just for plain simple reason because it was faster hardware. And it's like for what I'm doing, for what I need, give me a 486 box, put it in the corner, I'm fine. Anyone who's old enough that knows that reference, you're old. Okay, so let's
for a
continue.
retirement plan, we could always start like a web hosting company in Harrisburg. Just saying. Okay, moving on.
Well,
Sorry.
the tough part about hosting it yourself is always infrastructure.
Well,
'Cause
there is one here. There was a God. What the heck was that thing called? I remember the building as well, but
mhm.
it's like no. There was at least one or two small like web hosting companies in the area
Mhm.
that were never really bought out by anything, and one of them might still be in business. I just can't think of the name of it.
I wonder.
But
I know that there's this one um, podcast actually owns grc.com. That's this Steve Gibson, and he um, actually has physical boxes which he installs on in the data center. So
mhm.
he doesn't he doesn't own the data center where they're located, but the server he actually puts there he owns. He just connects it all up, so he has physical access to the data center. So that is pretty old school. And
Yeah.
people,
Oh, there's people that get tired of like the service that they have in their area or lack of it and just start their own companies. That's which I find just nice.
Oh yeah, agreed. Agreed. Okay, let's move onward and forward. The wonderful thing. For Omega weapons, one of the things actually I found this one's interesting. So there's a plain simple reason of the combat table. It's our fireballs. Fireballs are under technology, often compared to magic, and not understood by any but the L'Oreal. They're supposed to be fairies. In appearance and effect, they in and effect in appearance and effect. Okay, forgive me. They resemble huge balls of flame, although they can pass through unaffected through space. Is a complete mystery. So, the energy for this is actually 2 turns with 1 point of energy for each turn. So it's a very cheap weapon, and it can come from any source. The problem is they cannot be held, but they can be maintained by a rolling delay. So if you just put 1 point, it's not holding. It's considered a rolling delay. It's basically it is like a Hellbore, where you just keep on putting 3 points of energy each turn. It's not you're not holding it. You're just doing a rolling delay for that.
Forever
So,
charging it.
right, forever charging it. And the fireball, the combat table, range of 1, 2, you roll a d6, regular d6, 1 to 5. Now, damage, this is the interesting part, which is you have a 1d6, which you roll for damage, and you add 3 damage to that, to whatever you roll on the die. So it's random damage, and then of course, it's a regular to hit table, either hits or misses. All the way out to range 7, it's 1 to 4 to hit, and that's including overloads. The overload fireballs require 3 points of energy. Now, what's the difference? Overload fireballs, the standard damage, but in addition to this, the target ship takes 1 point of damage on all 6 shields, including the facing shield, which is cumulative with the original damage. All internal damage resulting from this resolves simultaneously as a separate volley. So, in the case without shields, i.e. Andromedans, and other units that have 2 shield/banks, scores 3 points. Of course, if there's no shields at all, all 6 points go directly internal. So basically, overload it's not overload. It's not an overload. Overload it's just adds a special function, which is kind of almost enveloping, but it only applies 1 point of damage to each shield, in addition to the directed damage, which is the 1d6 plus whatever. Depending upon, and that depends upon the range. So that is interesting. Okay, the bioelectric bolts, not that interesting. Let me just look at this one. Now, plasma whips. This one's a little more interesting. It's called a.
Was that where they had their D&D phase? They had Fireball and then they had Lightning Bolt. Right in a row.
Mm-hmm. Understood. This one's interesting. It's called the attraction repulsion fields. There are a London technology, a London system control used to control the range from with hostile units, either by pulling them closer or pushing them further away from the host creature. Alunda are actually biological ships, is what they are. The system was evolved from natural ability of Alunda used by larger creatures to push smaller ones away from the desirable or two on the ship. Tactically, it can also be used by other ones. Now, obviously, it's kind of like a tractor, but not quite. Energy requires 4 points of energy to arm, um, and you can hold it for 2 points. If not held, then of course you have to discharge it. Big surprise there. The firing rate is that you can use the ARF, attraction repulsor field, once every 64 impulses, and power can be allocated to the weapon at any time. So basically, after you use it on like turn 9, or turn 9, you can start charging it in turn 10. So by the time you can use it on turn 11, you're just holding it. Maximum range for this is 5 hexes. And 3 hexes if it does not feel full contact. The event. The mode, a given ARF may only operate in one mode at a given time. Either it can pull a unit closer or push it farther away, but it can't do both at the same time, the same operating period. Decision has to be made in the moment of firing. Big surprise. Beginning impulse that the field has seized the target unit. The unit moves 1 hex either towards or away from the firing unit, depending on the chosen mode. This movement takes place before the black hole movement and is treated as black hole movement for all purposes, mine destinations, etc. If there is a choice of which hex to move on into, our generated ship selects the hex, not the owner. Note the repulsion or attraction movement is mandatory, as in it can't just sit still. It must move. The propulsive effects continue until the target unit is at least 6 hexes away, or 4 if the field failed to achieve full contact. There's a die roll in place. The procedure, is that you fire a direct fire weapon. You roll to determine the effect of the field. If it's 1 to 4, roll its full effect. 5 to 6 is not achieve full effect. The maximum range then reduced to 3. So this is basically a very close weapon. I said again, it's like a tractor, but if you roll a 1 to 4, it actually works out to range 5. Basically, it continues the effect so it continues pushing it out every impulse or pulling it close pushing it out until its repulsive effect until its range 6. And range 0. And when it comes to attraction, the effect continues until the target reaches range 0 from the firing unit. When either of these conditions are met or 10 impulses have elapsed, the field dissipates. The movement caused by the ARF performed by all of the units, including because of black hole. So before all of them. So before you actually move your ship, it moves. Whether or not a given time continue to affect by a given ARF still have to complete the ARF movement. Does it 6? No longer affected. But yeah. The one thing I'm wondering. Okay. Oh, that's okay. That's about tractors. Da-da-da. I'm just wondering. Da-da-da. Okay, so yes, the ARF can be dropped before the conditions are met. So you actually, if you're drawing it in from like range 5 to range 4, 3, and you might want to not give it all rate to to range 1, you might say, okay, at range 2, I want to stop, and basically you can then turn off the field. So that is cool. And Howard just the one that I want to show. Okay, TAs are not. Now this one's interesting. The reason why this is a direct heavy weapon called the hyper cannons. So my one cat was crying, and it's like, I'm not sure why you're crying. Now the hyper cannons, they fires a quote unquote shell of fused matter and energy accelerated through subspace toward the target. Now, the HCHs are 2 turn-on weapons. HCLs, as in the light weapon, light versions, are single. HCLs are single turn arming. Both types share 3 arming modes: explosive, implosive, or enveloping. For the ACL, the mode is recorded when the weapon is armed. HCH arming mode is recorded in the second turn of arming. Like hyper cannons are armed for 2 points of power on the turn of firing. And heavies are 2 points of energy for the first turn, 2 points of energy for the second, and enveloping shells require additional 2 points of energy on the second turn. And for the light hyper cannons, that will require 1 additional point. So instead of having 2 points of damage, 2 points of power, it requires 3 points for enveloping mode. Procedure, is fired like any other weapon. And then their effect is determined immediately by the die roll. The total number of damage points scored by any hyper cannon is determined by the range, arming mode, and die roll. As you can see here, for those of you on the video, you can see the hyper cannon the explosive one does for the light version does 4 points of damage all the way out to range 6, and then all the way out to range 21, it's 3 points of damage. And to hit, when it comes to 1 to 3 is auto. 4 to 6, 1 to 5, and 7 to 12 is 1 to 4, and then 50% chance between 13 and 21. You can fire these things all the way out to range 33. Explosive for the heavy ones, of course, it starts at 12 points of damage from 1 to 3, and then goes down to 10 points of damage for range 12, and keeps on going down to range 33. It's actually a damage of 8 points, which is pretty nice. Okay, explosive shells cause listed damage. Implosive cause listed damage to the shields, including general and specific or PA panels. Damage scored by implosion shells are resolved first before any other weapons in the same volley, except energy howitzers and transporter collector beams. Internal damage is internal damage or damage to undamaged is doubled when combined with other damage. For example, if a heavy implosion shell caused 6 points of damage to a ship and 3 are penetrated, as internal damage, it's doubled. So the internal damage is not 3, it's 6. Now, the one thing about the implosives is that it does less total damage. To warn me, I forgot to disable the notifications. So the range 1 to 3 is only 9 points of damage, but if you get internals, it doubles the damage. So if you're firing like a down shield, it's double damage, which is nasty. It'll get out. Developing shells simply cause listed damage, which is much less. to each shield. So an enveloper becomes HCL at range 1 to that's the light cannon. Only does 2 points of damage, but it's 2-point damage for each shield. Okay, now it says here the units with two shield facings, like interceptors or Andromedan units, take 3 times the damage. So basically, half the arc. So it's shield facing. That gets gets that damage. So that's why in the case of Andromedan, the ACL would be, it says 2 here. It actually would be 6 for each PA panel. So, and HCH, it has range 1 to 3. It's 6 points of damage per shield. So instead of doing 12 points of damage of directed damage with an explosive shell, it does total of 36 points of damage. But it's on each and every shield. So, at the very least, that can be pretty nasty. And obviously very useful if there's a down shield. Of course, it's not unlike the Hellbore, where if you have a down shield, then a good portion of that damage goes to the down shield, which is always a nasty thing that can happen. Explosive ammunition for hypercannons are carried in quantity so great that based unlimited. Arming of light cannons and explosive or explosive requires 1 space of ammunition. Arming hypercannons requires 2 spaces. So they have a limited number of spaces. Okay, ammunition for hypercannons is considered to be an central located pool. Any hypercannon on the ship can draw from this pool. So it's actually a single storage area for all of the ammunition. My guess is there's no way to destroy the ammunition that's located. Yeah, that's the deal. We'll show the amount. Right. This pool is destroyed when the last excess damage box that any ammunition remaining in the pool at that time is lost. Teach. After the last excess damage box is destroyed, it go boom. So, yeah. Whoops. Excuse me. I just unplugged my laptop and I don't want it to die in the middle of. Well, I probably won't. This is if I pause too much. Now here's another interesting that's part of the hypercannons, which is firing arcs. The firing arcs are very, as they mentioned here, the light hypercannons may use at best a 60-degree arc, which may not be improved by any means short of X technology. Direct X ships improves this to 120. Now, heavy hypercannons use special arcs. These are fired down one single hex row. These also cannot be improved until advent X technology when they are increased to 60-degree arcs. So, as you can, if you want to, you can see on the video, it has different, like FHR, LFHR, basically FHR is front half row, that's it. Front half row. It's just that row right in front of it, and RHR is directly aft. So it's, to say the very least, it is, when it comes to the heavies, they're very limited. But if if you can get that if you can get that lined up against your opponent, it can cause you can cause quite a bit of damage. And as mentioned here, also that the hypercannons have no overload function. Not sure you really need it because you have the enveloping function, which usually, um, just from a terminology standpoint, usually you don't have an enveloper unless as a mode, if you have enveloper mode, you don't really have overloads. But of course, most of the time you talk about envelopers, you're talking about them in plasma torpedoes. So. Um, Horde, nah. Well, it's kind of interesting, which is the anti-proton beams. Those anti-proton blades were prime weapons of uh, Imatrion Horde. I think I got that right. And were later installed in certain ships on the Warp Technocracy. So the warps. The beams send a blade-like field of anti-protons skying through space, literally cutting their targets to pieces. Gotta love this. The proton beam takes 2 turns to arm the weapon. First turn requires 2 points of energy, and second turn armor will take 3 points of energy to complete the arming cycle. Source for it can be any source on the first turn. The second turn can be allocated. Must be well here. Immediately following arming cannot begin on that. So basically, I'm assuming that any the energy from any from any source, doesn't have to be warp or whatever. It does have a rolling delay system. So the unfired MPBs can be held for 1 point for allocation. But also you can use rolling delay, which applies 2 points of energy during allocation rather than 3. The weapon could then be fired, applying the 3rd point of power from reserve power. So during a turn, so in other words, you can, if you want, you can save that point of power, and to say, okay, if the idea in my mind is that if you might be firing it, but you might not be firing it, but you want to save that 1 point of energy for that weapon. Now, obviously, there's going to be multiple of these weapons on a ship, so that might actually give you quite a bit of savings that you could use. Now, it does have feedback, so if you range 0 and you fire an APB at your opponent, a quarter of that damage goes on the firing ship's shield. The combat table, which is interesting, which is a 2d6. I don't think there's anything that uses anything but d6 in SFB, but I say it anyway. Zero altitude is 10, 3 to 7 is 9, and then 8 to 11, 8, and keeps going down a little bit there. Now damage is from 1 to 4 is 2d6 plus a modifier. So again, it's a very random amount of damage. Okay, so that's obviously love that combat table when you have actually you roll d6 to see what kind of damage you get. Maybe I've played too many games of Dungeons and Dragons in my day. Oh yeah, okay. I'll just mention this one, which is a short-range cannon. Um, Short-range cannon was developed from the Klingon anti-drone system that was in the cargo bay of the throne of Ozymandias. That system was heavily altered by the Federal Republic of Aurora. This is the for anyone who knows a little bit about the Omega history, the FRA, Federal Republic of Aurora, is basically a collection of alpha races that they had there's some of the ships that fell through some kind of time space disruption and into there, including the Klingons and Federation, which was interesting. Okay, it says here that the ad system would only cause a small amounts of damage to Tachyon missiles, which the Republic considered the greatest seeking weapon threat in their vicinity. To improve the ad's tactical usefulness, they replaced the hypervelocity missiles, which were designed for killing drones. ADRAC, anti-drone drone. To improve the ad's tactical usefulness, they replaced it with a kind of energy-assisted explosive shell. While the explosion would not necessarily kill a tachyon missile, it would damage it much more than an ad would. In addition, the explosion would also have strong enough to damage ships. The only drawback of the system are weakening at longer ranges. So, kind of, but not quite. Energy cost to activate costs half a point of energy to fire one shot, which could come from any source. Because of the power requirement, SRCs, short-range cannons, unlike ads, cannot be armed while the ship is docked internally. They can't be held. If they're not fired by in the turn, they're armed, and the energy put into the system is discharged, which means you have to start. You'd have to charge them again. I'm wondering about one thing it doesn't mention. I'm assuming E124. Actually, let me see if I can bring that up. I just want to check one question, which is usually when it comes to discharges, you have to announce it.
Yeah, they're detachable most of the time, as far as I know.
Yeah. Okay, here's 3-3.
It has to be announced during your end of turn, I think.
Right. Discharge where it rolls. Okay. This act conducted any impulse or the final activity. It can be observed and must be announced to other players. So discharging it definitely requires you to announce it so that wrong one. There it is. Yeah. So you have to announce that you discharge it. So this means I'm not sure it really tells the person much other than yes, you had that weapon charged. Now, it is a very short range weapon, range from 0 to 3. Actually, sorry, 1 to 3. Range 0 and 4 plus, it gets 0 damage. So, it's not actable. You can't fire. Range 1, it's 1 to 2. 2, 1 to 3. And 3, it's 1 to 4 to hit for his 1 die roll. Now, for size class 7, i.e. like drones and things like that, it does 8 points of damage range 1, 6 at range 2, 4 at range 3. And then larger class, actually when you get to ships, which is size class 1 to 5, it does 3 points of damage, 2 and then 1 for range of 1, 2, and 3, which obviously is much better when it comes to an ad versus ad rack, but also it requires power. So interesting thing, but it definitely, hey, when it comes to versus tachyon missiles, it does much better because as I said, this last guy's 7, they can do up to 8 points of damage at range 1. Oh, I gotta mention this because it's a soldier. Because the soldiers are interesting empire. This is the dark matter pulsar. Dark matter pulsars are primary direct fire weapon. The soldier, who use them in quantity in the same manner as most empires use phasers. They fire a concentrated pulse of negative particles at the target. Dark matter pulsars operate the same as general rules as phasers, except wherein. Now, they're called DMPs. DMPs are destroyed. Okay, boom. After that, the thing is, procedure DMPs. Heavy DMPs require 1 point of dark warp energy to fire, and light ones require half a point of dark warp energy per shot. The DMPs use a capacitor system identical to phasers. Energy to arm DMPs can be used from any source, which can be allocated. That's interesting. Heavy DMPs can fire once per turn, and light DMPs can fire twice per turn. No DMP can fire a shot within a quarter impulse of a previous shot. Downfiring heavy DMPs can downfire as light DMPs, treating them as LMP for that purpose. The decision of fire in that mode is determined by the owning player. The first time the DMP is fired during a turn, if it fires as a heavy one, then it only has one shot. If it says fired by as a light again, then it can have a second light shot, but it can't be fired as a heavy. Now, damage. Okay, simple. It's to hit roll. 1 to 4 to automatic. 1 to 6. Heavy does 4 points. Light does 2. And 5 to 8. Is 3 and 1. So again, it's 1 to 5 to hit, which is pretty good. So, so at the very least, it can be nasty. Now, DMPs cannot be overloaded, but okay, you're fired at plasma. DMPs are treated as phasers when firing plasma torpedoes. DMPs damage developing plasma torpedoes at a ratio of 1 damage per point of warhead reduction. Firing at drones or mines. DMPs are not penalized for firing at drones or mines. Okay, they do blind. Damage resolution. Damage caused by dark matter pulsars are resolved in a dark matter damage table. That's something that we will be getting into next week, because actually it's something, to be honest, I've not implemented in the SFB Online client, but it's something I should look into. There hasn't been enough requests for it, but if I get enough people actually wanting to play the Soldra, then yeah, I'll add it and look into it, because I have to double check, but because I'm thinking about right now is whether that any weapon on the Soldra does not do dark matter damage. If all Soldra do dark matter, all weapons on the Soldra do dark matter damage, then what I'd probably do is make it automatic that if you're flying a Soldra ship, that Empire, that any damage done from that ship, well, yeah, the problem is the Soldra, the owning player doesn't actually do the damage. It's the only player of the weapon does not do the damage. The only player of the target does the damage, which means it's actually no matter what the target person, the person who's doing the damage allocation on their ship, they actually have to enter it into a dark matter damage mode, you know, in that case, which would be actually that was one thing I have to do, which is change it so that damage allocation, the first thing it sets what kind of mode it's doing damage, just in case someone does something silly, or they decide that we're gonna just for giggles have it so non-omegas use dark matter damage resolution rules, which would be interesting. I would not recommend doing that. Another one from the FRA, which is altered scale photon torpedoes. FRA began reverse engineering their ships. They found that the photon torpedo can be altered in scale without affecting the accuracy or range of the original weapon. The Federation had apparently decided to standardize on a single ubiquitous normal photon design to avoid complex assembly repair issues as well as technical training issues to train the captains. The Federation public, on the other hand, had no such limitations. Blah, 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 keeps going. These rules made their first big appearance on Module P6. And if anyone knows anything about Module P6, actually what it states in Module P6 about the photons, is that originally it's part of SFB. The photons were supposed to be like this. Each ship was supposed to have 4. Whether you're a destroyer, a heavy cruiser, or a dreadnought, they were always only supposed to have 4 photon torpedoes. But they were supposed to have the concept of light and heavy photon torpedoes. So the smaller ships would have light photon torpedoes. The dreadnought would have heavy photon torpedoes. And that's what's stated in Module P6. But obviously that didn't happen. I'm not sure if they explained it in Module P6 on why that occurred.
I don't recall that we did have a discussion about that before.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a year or two ago, you had a podcast where it was, where you talked about like that exact particular issue of the light heavy concept and why it wasn't pursued by them. So
yeah, which means that it probably was in Module P6. I just don't remember it at the moment in time. So
it may have simply been simplicity.
Right. Agreed. Disclaimer: the altered scale photon torpedoes operate exactly as normal photons in all ways, including, except defined below. Big surprise! It's the Omega rules. For example, the range and hit probability of all photons are identical regardless of scale. Only energy cost and damage output. So, as you can see here, you actually put up to energy a total of 12 points of energy to get a strength of 24, and I'm looking at this for a moment. Okay, arming. Heavy photons cost 50% more power to arm the standard photon. Thus, a standard load heavy photon will require 3 warp points for 2 consecutive turns. So another, which is, if you think about it, unlike the standard photons, where if you actually did the same thing but do 3 points, that means you're already making an overloaded photon. For heavy photons, no, it's not an overloaded photon. It's actually a standard photon. The light photons are 50% power less. Thus, a standard load light photon requires 1 point of energy for 2 consecutive. So basically, to have a standard, it would be 2 points, 1 point of energy for 2 turns. But of course, again, it has to be warp. But at the same time, it does half the strength. Actually, that's one thing. Does it allow for? My guess is no. Right, okay, yep, there it is. Photon torpedoes cannot be downloaded to smaller types. So it's so what it is defined by the actual weapon itself and not by the charging of the weapon. Like a plasma torpedo, where you can downsize the like you can launch a plasma F from a plasma R launcher. So it's purely that way. Look at this for a moment. I don't think. Oh, okay. This is an interesting one, which is the tachyosonic beams. What an interesting name. Tachyosonic beams are a primary heavy weapon for the Singer Protectorate. They are hypersonic weapons that travel faster than light speeds by riding a projected tachyon beam. The resonance frequencies that result can cause considerable damage over the course of several impulses. So it is this rule. Okay, note the tachyon, the TBTs tables in this rule are correct. Those on the Singer SSDs are wrong and should be ignored. We apologize for this blunder. It was a result of communication lags between Amarillo, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio. So, boo boo. So that's actually that. One of those things is like, hey, A to B, can you update the Omegas? My guess is updating the Omegas modules is low on the priority list.
Yeah. I would totally agree with you on that. I mean, it's a small part of their small player base.
Right. Oh, so. Agreed. To charge it, it's 2 turns. Arming weapon. The weapon must be loaded with a total of 3 points from any power source in order to fire. Allocating 1 or 2 points of energy to each individual beam on the first turn of arming, or 1 and 2. The second of arming arms them. Total, okay, 3, okay. So it can either be 2-1 or 1-2. TSBs, which begin firing during one turn, whose firing cycle extends over the turn break, is treated as having fired on the first turn and can begin reloading during the second turn. Source, any source. Firing, direct fire, big surprise. Rate, the TSB may not fire more than once a turn. Was a period of 2 consecutive turns, but it could be fired like impulse 32 of turn X, and again impulse 1 of turn x plus 2, which, so basically it's not 64 impulses, it's 2 turns. And the TSPs can be held for 1 point of energy per weapon. For firing, the tachyon must first be focused on a target, creating a wave. Sound familiar? Like PVDs? Of
Hmm.
tachyons over the hypersonic attack may proceed, and that the chance to do this is on the TSP chart, which is right here. 2d6, range 2 to 4. It's 2 roll 2 to 8. That's weird. Huh.
What's weird?
That's 2 to 8. Yeah, of course it's
Oh,
2. You can't roll less than 2 with 2d6. So 2 to 8, 2 to 7 for 5 to 8, and 2 to 6, 9 to 14. Basically, a basic sonic beam does 1 point of damage. Light overload is 2 points of damage. Regular overload is 3 points of damage. Now, um, a light overload, you actually can fire out to range 14, unlike most overloads. This one actually, well, the light overload, I think that's, yeah, that, LT, assume that stands for light. It can be several stages. Light over, yeah, it is light overload. Um, uh, so it goes out all the way out to range 14. So you can actually have an overloaded weapon that goes out to range 14. For regular overloads, out to range 8. Again, this is to me, it's a non-standard Omega convention. Because usually for Omegas, out to range 7 is where it stops when it comes to overloads. But this one goes out to range 8, but 3 points of damage. Now you can do a critical overload where it does 4 points of damage, but that only can be fired out to range 4. And then there's what's called light SBs, which are for fighters or PFs with a max range of 10. But again, after that, damage. Okay, after a TSB is focused on the target, it begins to score damage in successful impulses. A TSB can score damage during 4 impulses following the impulse, in which the first attempt to focus on the, and then if successful, then the first impulse 1 then can score damage on 2, 3, and 4, and 5. So, okay. So, on the first, that's interesting. So you fire, like if you fire on impulse 1, you don't actually get damage on impulse 1. It only will store for the next 4, so that'd be 2, 3, 4. 2, impulse 2, 3, 4, and 5 is when it actually does damage, which is going to be 1 point of damage, which is annoying. Any impulse with focused attempt is made, it scores no damage. Thus, in this example, a ship that did not achieve focus until impulse 4 will only cause damage on impulse 5. So, well, it looks like, okay, yeah, it says if it is, when you fire, it can be done on the table. If it misses during the focus attempt, it may try again next impulse as long as the target remains in arc and other appropriate conditions are met, like range. The chance to hit will be based on new range. Each attempt to focus beyond the first counts as 1 impulse of potential damage. So basically, this is, again, this is like the PPD, where you actually can roll for lock on. Okay. yeah, to use, okay, use, okay, so it's 1 point per ring. Procedure, 2 turns, okay, up to 3 points damage, 3 points of power. Overload, light overload, the weapon is armed with 3 points of power during each turn of arming, or 2 points for the first turn and 4 points for the second. So a total of 6 points. At this level, maximum range is reduced to 14. Regular overload, 9 points of power, 2 or more on the first, and 2 or more on the second. So a total of 9 points of power, which that's a lot of power over 2 turns. And use critical overloads to arm 6 points of power on the first turn, 6 and 7, so a total of 12. Okay, whoa. For critical overloads, there's no other sequence. It must be 6 and 6. No other sequence is permitted except for held overload torpedo being increased to a critical overload, which requires 3 points of power. So you can actually hold it and then make it a critical overload. The only question I have about is... right. I'm just wondering. I don't see it. Okay. Okay. I was wondering if this was like a fusion beam where you can do it's not double overload.
Suicide overload.
Suicide. Thank you. The suicide
You're
overload. So no, it doesn't. The critical overload is called the critical overload because of its short range. I guess that's not. It's not like you have light, regular, and heavy. Critical sounds better, I guess, because of. But so that's good. It doesn't actually give you, it doesn't damage your ship. Now, note on the tachyosonic beam, the closest range is range 2. So you can't fire at range 1 or range 0. Wow. And I mentioned here, which is tachyosonic beams, only cause feedback in the Quixar Valor cloud. Wow. I don't remember that empire. No. Okay. And I think, well, I'm just going to see if there's anything. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm just going to mention this one, and this is going to be the last one, which is transporter collectors. The transporter collector beam is another example of redefined transporter technology. The weapon operates by concentrating transporter energy into a coherent laser-like beam that is fired at the target, causing general mayhem and destruction by rearranging the physical molecules. Fun. It is not very effective against shield though. But if it damages a solid object, my guess it means internals, it can actually return some of the matter to the firing ship, allowing it to replenish the ceramic composite armor. So I need to fix my armor, so I'm gonna fire at you. Oh, jeez. TCBs are one-turn arming weapons that require 1 to 4 points of energy. The energy can come from allocated or reserve power, and source can be any source. It fires during the fire regular fire phase, normal for everything. TCBs can be held at no cost whatsoever, but energy applied to them lasts only for 3 turns. So you can charge it up to 4 points of energy, but you need to use it within 3 turns. So that's an interesting one. The procedure is the total number of damage points scored by TCB is determined by the range and the energy in the weapon and the die roll. There's the TCB. Okay. Damage caused by the beam basically is shown as 2 numbers separated by a slash. The first number indicates the damage scored if the target has at least 1 point of shields up, including secondary shields, or reinforcement of any type, but not including armor. CC armor P panels or anti-transporter fields. The second listed value is scored if the target does not have at least 1 point of shield protecting it at a time the weapon hits. Okay. Okay, so base PA panels take the second one. Wow. So at least, so as long as at least 1 point of shield is available, these bars being the single box, the first value is hard used, and then you go, okay, blah, blah, blah. No, Andromedans do not have shields. Andromedans, asteroid ships are not operating minimum shields. And Branthian Dragon ships will receive the damage listed in the second position. Nasty little buggers. For purposes, of 26.34, only actual internal damage to a Andromeda ship for TCBs is converted to CC armor. So it'll use the larger number, but it'll only if the PA panels are up and it can absorb that into its PA panels, it will then still then it'll still just absorb it without doing damage to the CC armor conversion. Now, if a TCB scores internal damage on a target, some of the disrupted matter can be returned to the firing ship to restore CC armor. This occurs after various molecules undergoing radical changes to reconfigure the CC armor, but this is handled automatically by the TCB system. Note that any armor on opposing ship damaged by TCBs, even if it is inside the ship outline, is not counted as internal damage. This conversion is even done if the target is a soldier ship. Exceptions, which is armor on Jandarian asteroid ships, which is actually masses of solid asteroidal material and is not treated as armor for these rules. Okay, when that happens, you divide the number of internals scored by TCBs by a given impulse on a given target by 4. So 25%. This indicates the amount of CC armor boxes on the fire ship can repair by this action. Note that this applies only to internals scored by TCB itself. Okay. If the TCBs hit a ship at the same time as other weapons, TCBs are assumed to hit first. Damage on multiple targets by a single RIN is resolved separately and are not combined. Okay, in the case of civil wars, this actually number is divided by 2 and not 4. Okay, the restored CC armor boxes occur at the end of the direct fire weapon segment. Wow. Um, okay, if the transport collector arm ship exchanges fire with an enemy ship, the CC armor boxes destroyed in that same impulse are not eligible for restoration using this rule. That means if the CC armor box is destroyed during damage during the weapon, during movement of the impulse, it is eligible to be repaired. However, CC armor box destroyed during direct fire weapon segment is not. Wow. If the transport collector arm ship does not have any eligible box to restore, the restoration is lost. Okay. Wah. Okay. So, say release. You don't want against the Rin, but of course, most of the time, the only place you actually will encounter the Rin is actually within the Rin Nebula. So they rarely go outside their nebula. And there's a whole history of the Rin in there. So
Ooh, Banhammer.
yes. Guest class.
Banhammer. Stream chat.
On Discord?
Twitch.
On Twitch.
Stream chat.
Oh, that guy. That guy. Okay. Ban.
It just wouldn't be the same if you didn't get at least one.
That's true. Done. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah. I just noticed. Yes, you're welcome.
Okay. Cool. I read it and like not sure what that meant. Said, "Oh, be a friend on Discord." It's like, which Discord server? So. Anyhow, okay, that is it for this evening. Show you some really cool Omega weapons, which are definitely much different than anything you'll find on the Alpha Octant. Come on, you have a weapon that actually takes the damage from your ship. When it damages your ship, it actually takes that and repairs its own ship. I'm sorry, that's a cool weapon.
Mm-hmm.
The ultimate use of transport technology. Wow.
We're just gonna rip your ship apart and reassemble the matter as our own armor.
Yep.
Yay.
Wow. Well,
kind of like Leech in WoW, but yeah.
Oh, okay, good. That makes sense. So, with that, Doug, it's been wonderful having you around.
Yay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, you have a good night.
Yeah.
So, had wonderful going over some more Omega weapons. I'm hoping I might go through a few more next week. Again, I didn't want to go through all of them because I noticed how there was so many. So it's like, God, let's skip that. Because I really want to get to some of the systems that are also very interesting. Because of, again, there are some, again, just like the weapons I pointed out, there are some interesting dynamics in the case of sometimes the way it does damage, sometimes how it does damage. I think there's definitely some kind of cool. There's some cool weapons there. So with that, I am Paul Franz, and I bid you a good night.